Hi, I'm Jowi Taylor. I'm a former broadcaster, writer, author, presenter, and creator of the Six String Nation project, author of the Six String Nation book about said project, and delighted to be making my Toronto mic debut.
What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1898, 1898 of Toronto Mic'd, an award-winning podcast, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery. Order online at greatlakesbeer.com for free, local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Visit palmapasta.com for more. Toronto Maple Leafs baseball. Catch a game at Christie Pitts this summer. No ticket required. Fusion Corp's own Nick Iones. He's the host of Building Toronto Skyline. And Mike and Nick, two podcasts that you ought to listen to. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. And Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Joining me today, making his Toronto Mic debut, it's Voyager curator, Jowi Taylor. Nice to meet you, Jowi.
Nice to meet you too, Mike.
And let's not bury the lead here. Jowi is spelled Jowi. Explain yourself.
I was born in Uganda, and so my dad's from Northern Ontario. My mom's from England.
Okay.
I got married. I was born.
You were married at very young boy.
Yeah, I started.
Okay, that's not cool.
My parents got married there,
Right.
And the only guest at their wedding was a guy named Odero Jowi, who was a friend of theirs. He was a Luo speaker from Kenya, working in Uganda, and I was named after him. It's a name that means buffalo in the Luo language.
Okay, so Jowi was this gentleman's surname.
Yeah, well, kind of the way
Okay.
it's odd the way it works there, but
Okay.
yeah, kind of.
Okay, that's a cool origin story. Like I was thinking, I don't know, it was a misspelling on the birth certificate. I wasn't sure where that story would go, but that's pretty cool.
Actually, there's kind of a neat story about this, which is that, we can get into all of this later, but I was, everybody assumed that I would be part of the Vancouver Olympics in 2010 with this project. And I was trying to talk to people, wasn't working out, nobody was responding to me. And then I get this email out of the blue from this guy, says, we would like to have you as part of the Vancouver Olympics, Olympic Village.
Wow.
Surely you're already invited. Someone's talking to you, right? And I was like, no. And he said, well, is there any chance you're going to be in Vancouver? And it just so happened my book had just come out and I was on a little tour. And I go in for this meeting at the VANOC office, and there's three people. There's the guy who invited me, Jordan. There's this guy, Andy, and there's this woman there as well, whose name I can't remember. We have this meeting. She says at one point in the meeting, I'm sorry, I have to apologize to you. And I said, why is that? She said, because I thought this project was like a guitar cardboard cutout that people stuck their faces through to get their picture taken. And I was like, that's fascinating how the broken telephone works. Like,
right.
Why would you think that? And then the guy, Andy, said to me, can I talk to you about your name?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. And he said, what is it? Where does it come from? What does it mean? I told him, and he said, that's kind of amazing because I've worked with a lot of Indigenous communities across this country. And do you know why the buffalo is so revered? And I said, not really. And he said, because it's the only animal that puts its head down and walks through a storm rather than running away from it. Because they know if they go through it, they'll get to pasture quicker. And that's what you've done with this project.
So now I want to make sure we know off the top. Again, we'll get into this, but what exactly is this project? It's 64 pieces, 5 musicians, 1 Canadian story, 6-string nation. Because I introduced you in that intro as Voyager curator. Is that accurate? Like, what is Voyager? Like, tell us exactly what we're talking about, and then we'll get to know each other a bit, and then we'll dive in.
All right. Well, the 5 artist things, that's just a show that's coming up on May
sorry.
29th.
Yeah, so I'm reading the... Yes, okay.
Yeah.
So May 29th, so we're recording on May 11th. I'll drop this right away. But May 29th at 8 p.m., Small World Music Center, 180 Shaw Street. That's the show with the 64 pieces, 5 musicians, 1 Canadian story.
Well, that's the show with the 5 musicians.
Right.
The guitar itself. So
there's a guitar. Like, it's not a cardboard cutout where you stick your face into it.
This is an actual playable instrument.
Okay.
A very good one, too. So this was an idea that I had in 1995.
Okay.
So you might remember in October of that year, there was going to be a referendum in Quebec on sovereignty. And, I kind of got it. I kind of understood the Quebec impulse, because there's a part of the country that really understands the connection between culture and nationhood and so on. Not any more than Newfoundland, I would argue, but nonetheless, I kind of got it. But the way the whole issue was framed was very much red versus blue, Quebec versus Ottawa, French versus English. And it's like, well, wait a minute. What about the Indigenous people of Quebec who have a relationship with the Crown? That's where their treaties are. What about people who came from Haiti or Algeria, new Canadians who settled in Montreal as Canadians?
Right.
Like, where is their voice in this? So I happened to meet this guitar maker, George Rosani, who was trying to build a guitar just using wood from his property, which inspired me. And he was in Ontario at the time. And I said, wow, do you think you could build a guitar using pieces from every province and territory? And then we'd have this kind of national guitar that would speak to the gaps in the conversation that were happening leading up to the referendum. And he said, yeah, that sounds like a cool project. I'd love to do it. And then I spent the next 11 years trying to get it organized, trying to get it funded, trying to do the research, all that kind of stuff. So it was not ready in time for that referendum. It took till 2006 for it to come off the bench and debut on Parliament Hill for Canada Day 2006. And since then, I've been taking the guitar around the country and abroad as well, sharing the story of the guitar and thereby the story of Canada from multiple perspectives, because every piece of this guitar tells a different story. Each one is drawn from different cultures, communities, characters, events from every province and territory of Canada. So it means that you kind of have this lens by which to look at history, culture, belonging, identity, all those things. And then on top of the story that I tell about it, which is why I'm the creator and curator, if you want to call it curator, sure. The guitar itself then has this other voice that comes out when people play it.
Right. Okay. So you did write a book, and there's great photos in this book. So there's you've got a copy there. I'm going to give myself a gift, okay? Because we're going to do a book exchange, okay?
I'm going to do that, and it's signed for you there.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so it's called 6-String Nation by Jowi Taylor. Like I said, 64 pieces, 6 strings, 1 Canada, 1 guitar. And I already saw some of the photos, and now I see, okay, these are great photos, because we're going to do a little game off the top where you're going to name check FOTMs, Friends of Toronto Mic'd, who you've got some connection to. Maybe they've actually played the guitar. Who knows? You're going to tell us. But I want to make sure people know that I now have a copy of the book, and I have a book for you real quick, Joey. The History of the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team.
Fantastic.
Great history there. I was there yesterday at Christie Pitts.
Oh, were you?
And it was a blast. Like, it was just a great time. There's a very controversial new member of the team. His name is Yasiel Puig. Cuban guy, but he's got a conviction for obstruction of justice, and there's a whole bunch of other allegations against him that make this a rather controversial signing. But this guy, I watched him, he batted 4 times. He walked, then he hit a home run, and then he crushed a ball that I don't think has landed yet, so his second home run, and then he walked again. So, no ticket required at Christie Pitts. I'm telling you, what an experience it was seeing this guy hit balls at a Toronto public park. Like, so this is the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team. No ticket required. Catch a game at Christie Pitts this summer.
Just so you know, there is some important baseball history in the project as well.
Tell me.
We have part of a jersey from the Vancouver Asahi Japanese-Canadian baseball team founded in 1914.
Okay.
And when we debuted, so this is a piece of material and it's been mounted on the strap of the guitar. And when we sort of announced that we'd finally, obtained this piece, we did a big thing down at the Rogers Centre for Canada Baseball Day, where they celebrate Canadian baseball history. And one of the people, Ace came out and hammed it up with the guitar. Munenori Kawasaki came out with the crowd. He knew all about the Vancouver Asahi.
Amazing.
But Ruth Tossetti was there, who was the granddaughter of Babe Ruth. And, of course, Babe Ruth hit his first home runs in Toronto on Hanlon's Point at Maple Leaf Stadium.
100% with the Providence Grays. And legend has it, the ball landed in the lake. And I don't know if this is accurate or not, but it's often been told that they never found that ball.
Really? Now imagine if I got that.
Get your
in the
scuba
guitar
gear,
somehow.
brother. We're going for a dive. And by the way, as I listen to myself in the headphones, I will let the listeners know. I hear that my voice is strained, and I think that might be because I was at the Lowest of the Low concert on Saturday at the Danforth Music Hall, and you just they did the entire album Shakespeare My Butt in its entirety in order, which is quite an experience because it's like a time machine back to 1991, right?
Yeah.
So here and. My favorite, shockingly, that's my favorite Lowest of the Low album. And I just biked over and yelled for, 90 minutes to 2 hours. And then, I don't know, as I
Time
started...
well spent.
You know what? No regrets. Shout out to Tom Cochran, who we'll talk about in a moment. But no regrets. But then the very next day, I was at Christie Pitts and just chatting up a lot of good people I met. Mike Wilner was there. Snow was there. Shout out to the band. He's not an informer. We got to get Snow, get this guitar in Snow's hands.
There you go. That'd be good.
I could help you with that one. He's coming over soon. Who else was there? Good to see Cam and MF and a bunch of people. Ghost Runner on third and Yoni and just a bunch of good people. Liz McGuire, and believe it or not, who has recovered from the ball hitting her face at Rogers Centre. Good to finally meet her. Yeah, that happened. Okay, so that was my weekend. Great time, but my voice is a little strained. But I'm jazzed for this chat here. But do you mind, Joey, if off the top, I just drop names on you of FOTMs? That means people who have been on this podcast. And in a sentence or so, tell me how you're connected to the person I name.
All right.
Is it a fun game?
Yes, it's super fun.
All right. So here's the guy who actually texted me and said, you need Jowi Taylor on your program. Okay. Blair Packham.
Blair Packham, what a lovely guy. And we actually grew up in the same neighborhood in Don Mills, pretty close to each other, but didn't meet till much, much later. And he's played the guitar on multiple occasions. I think I sent you a portrait that I have with Blair.
Yeah, you showed me a bunch of great pics. Yeah.
And so he is also, he's been involved in the song studio program. And so he has played the guitar multiple times at Hughes Room and elsewhere. Lovely
And
guy.
he said, Mike, you got to talk to Jowi Taylor. So props to Blair.
Props to Blair. Always props
What a
to Blair.
connector. Okay. And another guy who came over because I think Blair literally drove him here, but Andy Stochansky.
Andy and I met when we were both DJs at CKLN back in the day.
Okay.
And
So we're going to have to do a whole radio segment
oh yeah.
because I got to hear about that. But what era are we talking about?
This is the 80s. This is the the prime time. This is the golden age of CKLN back in those days, and with Kurt Swinghammer's designs on the sweatshirts and all that.
Right.
And so we both had shows and we were friends. And oh man, I've got a lot of Andy Stochansky stories. He is also one of the very first people. Like I was on the Chopper McKinnon show in Ottawa, and he said, I've talked to both Colin James and Stephen Faring and Colin Linden, all claim to be the first person to play this guitar. which one is right.
Oh.
And it's like, well, they're all right. They in certain ways.
That's impossible.
And so is Andy Stachansky in that number, and so is Joel Fafard. And basically, it's whether or not it was the first time in public. And really, the first two people to play it were Roger Howes and Dave McIsaac, who played it when it came off, the day it came off the bench in Nova Scotia. And Andy played it the night we all arrived in Ottawa for the Canada Day debut, 2006.
Right.
And Andy and his wife Lisa had come up, and because they're close friends, and they were with us at the hotel, and he played the guitar in the hotel bar. The next day, I think there was rehearsals with Colin James and others. And then the next day, or 2 days later, it was the day of the event, but they had a sponsor event at some big hotel, and Joel Fafard from Saskatchewan, he played it first. Okay. Then we did a workshop in the afternoon at Majors Hill Park, and Blackie and the Rodeo Kings were on stage. And who was I going to hand it to first? Well,
can I guess? Tom Wilson.
Nope.
Stephen Fearing.
Nope.
Colin Linden.
Yes.
Because of the three, he's the only one who hasn't done this show yet.
Colin. Yeah. Well, Colin, he's he's in
big
Nashville,
deal, right?
And he's a big deal down there. And we went to Branchdale Public School together. Okay. He was 3 years older than me, but it means I saw his first show when he was in grade 6 and I was in grade 3.
Wow.
And so, we would see each other in airports and stuff like that for years. But so when it came to who do I hand the guitar to first at this event, it's going to be Colin, because I've known him the longest. However, Stephen Fearing was officially the first person to play it because I had dreamed for 11 years that his song, The Longest Road, would be the first song sung on it, and it was in front of 80,000 people. So
wow. Okay,
cool.
So there you go. So some more FOTMs name drop there, but let me ask you about a woman. She's been over twice, and most recently she actually interviewed me, but Annette Mangard.
Yeah, Annette is on the cover of my book. There she is, right up at the top, upside down. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and... but I sent you other pictures too, and we've been friends for a long, long time, and I was on the board of the film festival that she started, the Images Festival. After she had stepped back from it, she and Mark Glassman started that together. Okay. We're regular walking partners and stuff like that.
Beautiful. Here's a name, new FOTM, only a couple of weeks ago, but his Toronto Mike debut blew me away. I loved it so much. Paris Black.
Paris Black. Okay, here's the weird connection to Paris Black.
I'm ready.
During the pandemic, I was swimming at a net public pool.
Yeah, I know it.
Community center.
Sure.
And he was there too. And we were often there at the same time. So we were in adjacent lanes, and then we would talk in the change room afterwards. Wow. Super interesting guy, and what a crazy career. And so we talked about getting the guitar in his hands at some point too. But then of course everything changed, and the pandemic ended, and things went back to normal.
Right.
So, sort of.
Here's a fun fact. For 3 years, actually, JKSK in grade 1, I attended St. Cecilia's School.
Oh, no kidding.
Right beside your pool there.
There you go.
Wow, what a small world. Okay.
Yeah, I live down the street from there.
I know that area very well. Okay. Lori Brown.
Well, Lori was deeply involved in the project. I can't remember how I first approached her, but I was working at CBC, and of course she was a legend there already. Yeah. And she just fell in love with the project, and she became part of our kind of executive team, sort of pushing the project through, because there were so many hurdles finance wise and organizationally and stuff, and we were very close for a long, long time. She's moved away now, so I see her less.
Lest we forget, she was the woman in the Corey Hart video for Sunglasses at Night.
Right, that's right.
People always start with Much Music. I'm like, no, we got to start with Corey Hart.
Kind of like the Courtney Cox to Bruce Springsteen, right?
Yes, absolutely. And then, of course, Michelle McAdory from Crash Vegas. I drop often the fun fact. She's the cute gal in the Try video by Blue Rodeo.
No kidding.
Yeah, she was dating. Greg Keeler.
See, my connection there is through Jocelyn Lanois.
Okay.
Who was a pal.
From the famous Lanois Hamilton family. And yeah, she's a member of Crash Vegas as well. And then you got Colin Cripps, and we can keep going here. Okay, right. But next name for you is, oh man, I loved my chat with this man, Kim Clark Champness.
Oh, well, Kim, I only recall an early conversation about the project where he was very, very supportive and wanted to help. Him and John.
Oh, the guy who ran Much Music?
No.
What era are we talking about?
Well, in fact, in that era, big
John Majors?
No. He was he wasn't an on-air guy. He was a behind-the-scenes guy. Rat's 6'5". Can't remember his name, but anyway, the two of them, we all had a meeting together about it, and that's a light touch story there.
Still, but that ties in with Laurie Brown. They were both at Much Music at the same time. So Richard Krause and I both worked at
Zydeco Southern Accent on Markham Street. I don't know if you remember that old restaurant.
I do. I remember that right by Honest Ed's
restaurant. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we knew each other from those days, and then from CBC as well. Of course, he was a frequent CBC guest when I was working there.
All right, here's a teaser for the listenership and for you, Joey, which is that I am on May 21. I am headlining at the Elma Combo.
Yes.
Okay, this is happening. It's coming up soon, man. Okay, tickets, if you go to torontomike.com and you click Elmo Gig, I hope my voice is better by May 21. I realized, could I do 90 minutes like this? I guess I grunt through it or whatever. But it's coming. It's happening. And there is a reference to Richard Krause in my 90-minute one-man show. This is the only teaser I've ever given. So Richard Krause is mentioned in my performance.
You both have awesome hair.
Okay, well, yes, I'm honored to be in the same company as Richard Krause.
The same hair club, as it were?
We've got our hair going on here. He's got cooler taste in music, I think, but he's a good guy. Don Ferguson.
Okay, here's my story about Don Ferguson. Is that we were when I was with CBC, periodically they would have these events that they called the petting zoo.
Okay.
This is when the public is invited down and the on-air talent is kind of trotted out to kind of glad hand and so on. Right. So there was a little schedule, and Don Ferguson and I were paired up together. We're at a little table in the atrium at the CBC Broadcast Center. And Sylvie McLean was the publicist, and she came by with these little name tags for us, Jowi Taylor, Don Ferguson, and it said, you're here for the next 20 minutes, and just say hi and give people the pamphlets or whatever. And Don Ferguson turns to me, he goes, "Canadian celebrity, you still need a name tag."
That is so true, though, because many a Canadian celebrity waltzes into this very basement, and I think, I just took the streetcar or whatever, and I'm thinking, this is Canadian celebrity right here. Okay,
that's right.
All right, here's a big name for you. I hope to see this gentleman on May 21. I don't know who's bought tickets. I don't know how many tickets have been sold, but I bet you if this guy's around, he'd buy a ticket. Steve Paikin.
Oh, Steve Paikin, I first met at the Chautauqua in Muskoka on Lake Rosso, and he kind of fell in love with my presentation that I had delivered there. He was there with his family, just sort of chilling for the weekend, and he subsequently had me on the agenda twice for full length interviews, which was unbelievable.
To talk about the. By the way, how did the guitar get the nickname Voyager?
Well, we had the first couple of years that we were touring around the country, we had a little questionnaire for people, which was Willie Nelson has Trigger and B.B. King has Lucille.
Right.
What should be the nickname of this guitar? And, people were all like Maple Leaf and, whatever, all that kind of stuff. And one of the forms that came back was from Lieutenant Colonel Susan Baharial of the Canadian Armed Forces, who is an extraordinary woman with an amazing story. She was at NORAD Command in Colorado on 9/11. She's and endured a lot over her military career. And she had written on her form Voyageur. And then she invited us to do a thing at the Canadian Forces College up in North York, which was an amazing, amazing event and generated a whole ton of portraits. And subsequently, when we officially decided to name the guitar Voyageur at her recommendation, we had her out there's the picture. Yeah. You've just found it.
Yeah.
There she is. That's in Winnipeg. In fact, in Saint Boniface at the Festival du Voyageur that takes place in February in Winnipeg, if you can imagine. And we officially bestowed the name at the opening ceremony there.
Okay. All right.
2008.
This gentleman I'm going to name now lives in France. Jeff Lumby.
Jeff Lumby lives in France? No kidding.
Him and his wife up and moved to France just like when the pandemic was starting. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, she speaks French.
Julie Lafontaine.
Correct.
Right.
I think she sold off her. She had
her agency.
Her agency. Yeah, they're in France now.
Well, that's fascinating. I haven't seen them in ages. I was with Fountainhead, her talent agency, and so I went to all the parties and stuff. And my connection to Humble Howard, for example, and Jeff Lumby is through, of course, Julie and Dan Duran, whose picture I sent you.
I saw the Dan Duran photo.
Yeah, and you were wondering, what's the connection?
Well, yeah, because he doesn't play, as far as I know, he's not a musician.
No, but there was this little cluster that at all the Christmas parties for Fountainhead talent, it would be Jeff Lumby, Howard, me, and Dan. Okay. And you can guess which two guys were on the right-hand side of the political spectrum and which two were on the left hand.
Lumby's favorite politician of all time is Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people that we think of as perfectly reasonable Republicans.
But where do you put Howard in that? I don't even, because Howard goes where the wind's blowing. Like sometimes Howard sounds awfully left of center, and sometimes he's talking about what a great job Stephen Harper did.
Well, I think this is why these conversations were so much fun. The four of us would just we'd be sitting at that table and drinking wine, and so.
Well, I can imagine because, of course, Howard and Lumby go way back.
Yeah.
Way back to like Moose Jaw, I think. And then they were on the air in Montreal before Howard gets recruited to be on the Humble and Fred show here. And that's 1989 when that happens. So they go way back. They're still best buds, of course. And Dan Duran and Howard go way back. So I guess all three of those people were working somewhere out west in radio way back when. Like we're talking when they were kids, like in the early 20s or whatever. So that trifecta, that's like, they're like brothers.
Yeah. Dan was amazing too. Like, I think my first encounter with Dan was when I was working at Harborfront Center and we were doing a show with, what was the name of the band?
I like this game. Give me a clue.
Who did Hot, Hot, Hot?
Oh, Hot. You mean Hot Heat from Vancouver?
No. Hot, Hot, Hot was the single.
I can only think of Buster Poindexter doing it.
It was a soca hit.
Is it the Satellites? No, I'm trying to think
No, it was called. They were called the Burning Onion or something like that. And anyways, it was a big show. February, Harborfront Center.
Yeah.
And CFNY was the media sponsor, and they'd sent down two.
Okay.
Accidentally, I think they sent down two people to MC the show, Deadly Hadley.
Yep.
And Dan Duran.
Wow. Oh, Dan Duran was just producing Humble and Fred at the time too. He didn't even have an on-air spot. He was just producer for the Humble and Fred show. Yeah. He's the second. I happen to know this because I currently produce the Humble and Fred show. But the first producer was a guy named, last name was Williams. I think it might be Dan Williams, but he didn't last too long. I don't think he liked Humble and Fred. That's in like the summer of '89. And then Howard gets his buddy from out west, Dan Duran, to produce the show. And Dan was the producer of the Humble and Fred show, but he didn't have a show on CFNY. But you would sometimes you'd hear his big voice on the Humble and Fred show.
Yeah. Wow, that's so funny because I thought of him as on air, but we got to talking backstage, and then the problem was when it came time to okay, the band we're ready to start the show, the band is ready to go, and whatever. Headley had smoked a lot of weed that day
I'll bet.
in the dressing room, and he was like, I don't want to go out there. Like
Send Dan out.
Send Dan out there. So
I'm Dan Duran.
I'm Dan Duran, and this is Burning Onion.
Well, if anything's filmed in Toronto that has an anchor or
That's
a news
right.
reporter, it's probably played by Dan Duran.
Until Kevin, what's his name, took over.
The guy from the newsroom?
Yeah. The guy from
Which Kevin?
There's the other. Is it Kevin? There's that other Toronto
there's another
anchor
one.
who
Okay,
then
they
went
gotta
to
take
Hollywood, and
turns.
he's like the anchor man on every Hollywood movie.
I don't know that when your name hits your heads, just spit it out. But okay,
Yeah.
so we'll move on because here's a guy who is BFFs I don't know if they're still tight, but Jeff Lumby would spend many a night talking about politics and drinking wine with FOTM Ron McLean.
Okay, Ron. So of course there's a controversial piece of Don Cherry's pants in the guitar case, which have been substantially removed. They're still the outline of them is still there, and the waistband is still there. We have made room for the color that he withheld from us when he donated those.
I know you're talking so discreetly, but what are we talking about? So Don Cherry's pants were in this guitar?
Yeah. So in the case, we sewed them
Okay.
in. So I had asked for a pair I wanted a jacket, of course. Who doesn't want a Don Cherry jacket in this thing? So
Right.
I had asked for that, and there was a lot of back and forth with his very, very lovely daughter, who was his representative.
She's passed away.
Oh, has she? I was not aware of that. She was terrific. But she eventually said, Dad can't bear the thought of anyone cutting one of his jackets. Will you accept a pair of pants? And I was like, look, I
It's
don't,
not the same thing, though.
I don't really care. Because it's not like I'm not a huge hockey fan. I'm certainly not a big Don Cherry fan.
You're not a big hockey night in Canada Head?
And yeah, so I just, I said, fine, whatever. And so they sent along a pair of black and gray check trousers.
Okay.
I was like, that says nothing about Don Cherry, but we put them in there, and they became like a nice little, during my presentation, a little bit of a punchline. Because we had Karen Kane's tutu, and we had Pierre Burton's bow tie, and then there was Don Cherry's pants, and there was a cadence to revealing those, and it was terrific.
Right.
But then when he said what he said in 2019, in November,
you people, you come here for our milk and our honey. Yeah.
and you don't wear a poppy. And it's like,
Right.
well, but that's not true. And so I thought, man, why am I giving this guy so much real estate in the case? And my first impulse was to just take them out.
Right.
But first of all, that was going to be impossible for some reasons that I'll explain. But more importantly, I had a school gig up in Unionville Montessori, and I asked the principal, Dave Traherne, to assemble a student panel for me to talk about this issue. What should I do? Because I didn't want to do anything rash. And he assembled a panel it was mostly girls, grade 8 to 10, very diverse backgrounds. And I said, what do you think? I'm tempted to just pull these things out, but I don't want to, I don't know, what should I do? And they said, well, actually, we think it's important that at least something of them remains in there, because it becomes a way for us to open up a conversation about bullying and Islamophobia.
This is how I feel about Dundas Street.
Yeah.
I instead of whitewashing, rewriting history, we won't speak like keep the name Dundas and educate children maybe who this is named after and why it's problematic. I don't know how you learn about things if you just whitewash history.
There's a famous, Frankie Boyle, the Scottish comedian?
I do know that. Actually, I'm not sure I know, but possibly.
He's got a great series. It's well worth watching. He's in Bristol. Bristol, with a guy who is, anyway, it's a famous slave port, and there's a black historian there who talks about exactly that. I have a similar situation with a piece from the eastern townships of Quebec, and the person it's slate from the roof of a chapel built by slaves who were brought over by loyalists from Vermont. And we've taken this slate and we've ground it up, and it's in the top of the bridge pins. And Hank Avery was the historian who got us this material. And when they announced that they were changing the offensive name of this place with a commission that was set up in Quebec to look at many places that were used this word in Quebec, I called him up and I said, so this is good, right? What do you think? And he said, well, no, this is how they whitewash history.
Yeah, it's like it never happened.
It's like it never happened.
Like Dundas didn't exist. I know, Ryerson, the private institution, chose to change their name, which is fine. TMU now, even though I had TMU first. It was the Toronto Mike Universe. So what's up with that? Okay, is that fair? But I get
Free
that.
Advertising for you.
Right. Well, we still
you
talk
got your
to
own subway station now.
Yeah, and we still right. Yes, I do. And we still talk to the Garys about The Edge, right? Which was named after Edgerton Ryerson, right? But I'm a big fan of talking about it. Like, I don't know. I'm happy to talk about, for example, Yasiel Puig, who is a very problematic, a signing that needs to be talked about, right? This is not Joey Votto who's been signed, who is beloved and like could be prime minister when Mark Carney steps down or whatever. But so I think we need to have conversations about these things, and I think that if you just even the Don Cherry thing, and I'll just say this about Don real quick here. So his daughter, who passed away suddenly just a couple of years ago, her name was Cindy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I had a conversation this last week with Tim Cherry, who is Don Cherry's son. And Tim Cherry is in the Toronto Mike calendar to come over, and I'm going to have a open and honest conversation about Don Cherry, who is a figure I find it a problematic conversation because I don't know about you. We already established you weren't a big Hockey Night in Canada head, but I would watch my Leafs on Saturday night growing up, and I did not leave the TV during the first intermission because I wanted to hear Coach's Corner with Ron McLean and Don Cherry. Like, this was as big a part of the game to me as the Leaf game. And that was such a huge part of my life. And I think we need to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to people. Not sometimes things are problematic and troublesome and need to be discussed.
I have a whole Substack about that I just published.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me and everybody else your Substack so we can check this out. What's the name of it?
It's Six String Nation. Beyond the Six String Nation is what it's called. But
so I'm glad you left a little Don Cherry in that guitar. Let's talk about Don.
Well, hang on. Wait a minute. Because this goes back to the Ron McLean story that I don't want to forget.
Okay, yeah, we're on Ron McLean. Yes.
Well, anyway, okay. So here's the thing. Basically, when we took out we left the outline of the pants and the waistband and the cuffs, right?
Okay.
But what that did was it freed up the possibility of putting back in the color that he had withheld from us by including materials from people that he might have disparaged, right? So one of the pieces that I got was a piece of carpet, a swatch of carpet from the CCIQ mosque in Sainte-Foy, Quebec, where those 6 men were killed.
Right. And
so it's green carpet with their names in gold on the carpet. That's now in part of that space. Okay. A red T-shirt from two-spirited Indigenous dancer icon Renee Highway, from the play that his brother wrote. He played the character of Nana Bush. That T-shirt from Renee Highway is in there as well, and we've just added. This is a first.
Okay,
this is a media exclusive at this point.
I wish I had a soundbite for this. Okay,
that's right. You need a sting for this.
Did you breaking news? And it'll be voiced by Dan Duran. Okay.
We've just added some material from Taller Cranston. 2 pieces of.
His sister was over recently.
That's right. Okay. So that was one of the other connections that we were going to have there. But yeah, so she gave us 2 pieces of material from him, and they now have been included again within the space of Don Cherry's pants, right? So ultimately we get the color, we still get the shape of Don Cherry's pants, and so we don't avoid the conversation about. We just don't.
See, I like that.
Foreground it, right? We know it's not like he's going to occupy all that space, and that is the problem with these conversations. And as you say, it's important to still have them, but you always have to be mindful of, well, wait, who is occupying the space of this conversation? Who gets the loudest voice? So what we've done is we've kept Don Cherry's voice in there, but it's not as loud as it used to be.
I love it. Yeah.
Okay, but back to the Ron McLean.
Yeah.
Here's the quick Ron McLean story, which is just that, remember when he was in those negotiations,
of course,
those very
$400,000 Canadian dollars,
right.
I believe, is what.
Right. Yeah. So around that time, there was going to be a royal visit at the CBC. and they were doing this stuff in the atrium, and right by that big green elevator shaft that's in the center of the atrium there was this structure went in, and it was covered with a drape. You can tell what it was, but it was kind of throne shaped. I was like, oh my God, like, is the queen going to sit there or something like that? Anyway, so Ron MacLean is in the news every day with these problematic negotiations. And I'm going to work one day, and I'm in the elevator, lobby, whatever, with a bunch of people, and Ron MacLean comes in. So we're all waiting for the elevators together. Elevator arrives. We get in. There's 8 of us in the elevator. Everybody knows Ron MacLean's business at this point, right? We're all standing in a room, and everyone's looking at their shoes. And I'm like, oh, come on.
Well, that's funny.
So I said to him, and they had just made the deal. And I said, so Ron, congratulations on the deal. Don't you think the throne in the atrium is a little bit much?
That's a good line.
And he said, yeah, that's my agent. Doesn't know when to quit.
Ron's a sharp guy. But Ron took a lot of heat too for in real time. He didn't,
you could see the look on his face, right? When it happened, you could see he was kind of like,
Yeah, and I will say this.
He is a fast guy.
When you're live, I can't remember. I can't remember if it was exactly live or if it was like almost live. Like, it's live to tape anyways. There's some, I can't remember. I feel like it's on multiple markets with games ending at different times. So maybe it's live for the first game that gets to the first intermission, and then everyone else gets the recording of whatever happened in that 6 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever. But in real time, I always think to myself, if I'm in that position, like, he's getting the voice in his headset and he's throwing to the video of Don Cherry, the Remembrance Day video. Like, he's throwing to a video. So it's possible that Ron MacLean in his mind has already moved on to the next thing he has to do to throw to this video or whatever. And he's not really processing the words coming out of Don's mouth.
Right.
Like, I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt on this, because I think he's a moral guy who considers all this deeply or whatever. So maybe that's my bias showing, because I had a great experience with the guy. But big hip fan too, Ron MacLean.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. In fact, that was my dream, was that we would get in the hot stove with the guitar and with Gord doing 50 Mission Cap. That was the dream. It never happened, but I did get Rob Baker to play it. So
okay, that's cool. Rob was just at the It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken, which is the musical in Hamilton that I caught on opening day. Okay, so I realize now I could do 90 minutes talking about this list, so I will try to get going here. But her husband also came over recently, but Carol Off.
Mm-hmm. Carol Off had me on As It Happens when she was hosting there to talk about him. And the great thing about Carol was that, like, there was supposed to be a CBC television special / series about this project. Like, I signed into a development deal in 2002, I think. And for 4 years, it was a nightmare. Now, I was with CBC Radio at the time, and I think a lot of people thought, oh, so it's going to be easy for you? It's like, no.
Because you're already inside.
I'm in the building.
People think it's
but
easy.
it was not. And in fact, it was Laurie Brown and I who went and pitched together.
Okay.
And I got a call from Anton Leo, who was an old friend from CKLN days, and he said, what did you do in there? Because everyone here is buzzing. Like, that was like, people loved this pitch. It was fantastic. It was great. And then it took 4 years before they eventually said, yeah, no, we're not going to do it. It was a nightmare. And Carol, but we had to race. I had committed to the National Capital Commission in Ottawa to go ahead and, reveal the guitar to the public. It left us in a huge lurch because the federal government had just changed too. So some of the funding that I was expecting got withdrawn. Like, it was just a nightmare. Carol had me on As It Happens, and I told her off mic, like I said, well, here's what's happening. And she said, they don't get it, do they? They just don't get it. Now, this is often the case between the TV and radio sides at CBC, where I think.
But I'm always interested in these stories, like it's like how the sausage gets made or whatever. Because I never had any insight into this world until I started talking to people like you and Carol, etc. But Carol Off, when I started Toronto Mic'd back in 2012, I sent a note to a producer rapper who I was introduced to by my late friend Mike Kick. the late great Mike Kick introduced me to his buddy Ill Vibe, and I said, Illy, I'm looking for something in the spirit of the As It Happens theme song, but a little more hip hop, a little more cool, a little more Toronto, and that's how the Toronto Mike theme was born.
Oh, no
that was my
kidding.
note.
No
I
kidding.
love that. Mo Kaufman.
Mo Kaufman, yes.
Curried Soul.
Swinging Shepherd Blues.
Yeah, yes, Curried Soul. Dun 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 dun.
Oh, that's it. No, that's right.
That's Curried Soul. But Carol Offs, of course, her husband, if the listenership doesn't know, who recently made his Toronto Mike debut and was exceptional. What a great debut. Lyndon McIntyre.
Yeah.
There you go. So, and Carol apparently has another book coming out and will be back. So she had a good experience. So, all right. Oh, I had to use this guy as a lawyer for a bit because a notorious racist, and I mean, he had been like convicted of like, I don't know what the official charge is when you're convicted of hate crimes of, racism. I don't remember what that's called. But this guy was threatening to sue me for comments I made about him, and I had to consult jazz musician and lawyer Ron Davis.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Ron was my and Ron told me he explained libel, and he explained what's the other one? Libel, slander. You got it. One's written, one's verbal, I guess. But he explained that you can't ruin a reputation of somebody who's been convicted of like hate crimes.
Right. That's wow. That's great, Ron. It's so funny because when I went through, I was going through the list of your guests and the friends, and I clocked Ron Davis, and then when you were talking to Annette and Aaron Davis came up, and the confusion about Aaron Davis is
AAAR versus ERIN.
And so then I thought, does this Ron Davis?
No,
count
and this Ron Davis, by the way, I wanted to have him on, and he said, "Well, I want to come on, but could you get me on with Steve Paikin?" And then I called up Paikin, and I said, "Would you come on with Ron Davis?" And he said, "Of course." So they came on together.
Yeah,
Ron Davis and
that's
Steve
nice.
Paikin.
Ron's a lovely guy. Ron and Danielle Lenardi were old friends. Well, Danielle Lenardi got introduced to me first before she hooked up with Ron, and we were friends. And then she started going out with Ron, and the two of them would come over for dinner and stuff. So that's how I know.
He's a sweet man who, again,
and he performed at Harbourfront while I was there too.
Symphonic, right? Symphonic.
Yeah, Symphonic.
His name's Ron, so Symphonic. Okay. Talented guy, good lawyer, and helped me out when I needed some legal help. Now I go to Lauren Honickman, but at the time I would go to Ron Davis. So, Deanie Petty. Speaking of Dan Duran.
That's right, yeah. Deanie and I were both with the National Speakers Bureau, and we were both showcasing at the Glenn Gould studio along with astronaut Dave Williams. So it was the first astronaut I met was Mark Garneau.
Right.
But 3 astronauts have played Voyager.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Chris Hadfield.
Yeah.
Roberta Bondar.
No.
Okay, then I'm out of guesses.
Jeremy Hansen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
So,
right.
Now, Jeremy
Right.
didn't play, but Jeremy got his portrait taken.
Well,
with
Hadfield's a slam dunk there, right?
Yeah, that's
Give him
right.
a guitar,
it's
let
gonna
him
be,
go.
Yeah, it's going to be Chris Hadfield. So, but yeah, like I never thought I'd meet one astronaut, and I met 4. So, and 3 of them have held the guitar. So, yeah, so I did.
And those are like
with Deanie Petty,
kind of the most famous Canadian astronauts,
except for Roberta Bondar and
except
Julie
for Roberta.
Payette. Probably,
Right. Yeah, well, Bondar is a big deal. I had her on, Roberta Bondar, and I didn't do it in real time, but in post, I added in this Letter Kenny bit they do about Roberta Bondar, but I added the whole thing. So you're listening to a very serious chat with a very smart and serious, accomplished woman, and then there's like 10 minutes of Letter Kenny just thrown in there. So there you go. There's a choice I made. Okay, so Cooking with Gas. So Deanie Petty, who she did it with me remotely, even though she's on the other end of the city, I guess. And then I said to her, and at some point I said, I'd really like to get you in person because she was doing this TV show. And she essentially said, a very sweet way, kind of, but like remote or GTFO. Like she said it nicer than that, but it was like, no, she's not visiting the basement. So I never got Deanie in the basement. But Howard Glassman tells a story on Toronto Mike where he would be this frequent guest on the Deanie Petty show, like once a week or something. And then, but he feels he lost some co-hosting gig with Deanie that he lost to his dear friend Dan Duran. Like Dan swept in and took this gig that Howard wanted. But there you go. There's a fun story.
I have a little. There's another tangential story, but it's one of the loveliest stories about Alex Lifeson.
Oh yeah.
Who has not met the guitar. and I would love for him to meet the guitar. But I used to work at Hernando's Hideaway. You remember Hernando's Hideaway on Yonge Street?
I can't recall it.
It was a downstairs Mexican Tex-Mex bar at Yonge and Wellesley.
Okay.
Best margaritas in the city, good food. And we had a regular there. His name was Les, and he had been a child star. And at this point, he was a much older guy, and he was a little bit rough, a little bit worse for wear.
Right.
As a kid, he had appeared in Hitchcock's The Birds, and he appeared on Andy of Mayberry as one of Ron Howard's little pals.
Okay.
And so he had lots of stories to tell, but at this point, he was a janitor at the Enoch Turner Schoolhouse, and he had a bit of a bar tab problem, and he would come into this Tex-Mex bar, and he would order Grand Marnier and a coffee, and he would sit there nursing the coffee and just ordering Grand Marniers. And he was the only person we let run a tab. And one day he said to me, I grew up with Alex Lifeson, and I've decided I'm going to ask him for some money. And I was like, really? Are you sure you want to do that? Like, is it going to jeopardize the friendship? And he said, no, I got to do it. Like, I'm just in a bad way. I really got to do it. So he let me know when he was going to do it. And I was a bartender there. And I come in for my shift the day that I knew that was going to be happening. And there's Les sitting at the bar with his coffee and his Grand Marnier. And I said, hey, how did your meeting with Alex go? And he said, it was amazing. We did it right over here, right over at table 12, whatever. He said, he came in, we sat down, and we caught up a little bit. And I was just about to ask him, and Alex said, listen, Les, before you say anything, I was thinking about how you helped on some of the lyrics on the first album. And I talked to my accountant, and he figures it's probably worth some money. So here's a check. And he gave him a check for like $8,000. Like, it was so gracious. Like, it was so lovely, and it spared everyone's feelings. And it was just, and I just thought, wow, I got a lot of time for Alex Lifeson.
I'm so glad you told that story. Like, what a heartwarming story.
Yeah.
He just did music with the Rio Statics, their new album. Alex
yeah.
Lifeson's on that.
Yeah.
And when I just saw Tom Cochrane open up for The Who at the
Wow.
Freshwater Stadium or whatever, amphitheater, whatever, RBC amphitheater now, but whatever, I can't keep track of the names. But Alex Lifeson came out as a special guest
Wow,
for
awesome.
a song there. My goodness gracious. Okay, I love that story.
Want me to tell you my Tom Cochrane story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, do Tom now, because I was going to bring him up anyways. Later.
Okay. So I'm the guitar was still just an idea. I was still just sort of shopping it around, trying to see if I could get it organized to get built. And I was at the convention center, and heading down into the bowels of it, right down that big long escalator. And Tom Cochrane is in front of me. And I said, Tom, I'm Jowi Taylor, and I've got this project that I feel like I just want you to know about. And he said, okay. And we're riding an escalator together, and I tell him the idea for this project, and he goes, sounds great. Like, what can I do?
He's a sweetheart.
That was about it. And I was like, well, thank you. Years later, the guitar's done. It's out in public. We've done a bunch of festivals, and I'm on a flight with the guitar. And I used to be able to carry it. They let me carry it in the overhead or in the closet at the front, the first class closet or whatever. And I'm on a flight with Tom Cochrane. And we land at Pearson, and we kind of acknowledged each other. And it's not like he recognized me or anything, but he kind of acknowledged me because I was the guy carrying a guitar off of a plane. And there in Pearson in the arrivals area, I said, hey, we met all those years ago, and I told you about this. Well, here it is. And so he posed for a series of photos. So they were lovely.
Okay. And another thing that Tom Cochrane and Alex Lifeson have in common. In fact, they share this with the aforementioned humble Howard Glassman, but all three are huge golf fanatics who golf early and often.
Yeah, you won't get me out there.
You're not out there. No, Joey. Okay. Here's a name that I love. She now lives in Mimico. Shout out to Biff Naked.
Does she live in Mimico now? No kidding.
For years. So before the pandemic, she moved from Vancouver to Mimico, and she considers me her neighbor because we're close enough here, and just a lovely, lovely woman.
Yeah, she's amazing. She is also someone who is with my speaker agency, the National Speakers Bureau, and I was out in Vancouver doing a showcase out there with them, and she was part of that program, so we got to know, and I got portraits with her. Yeah,
she's great. Oh, here's a good name because it ties to Blair Packham. But the name I'm going to drop on you right now is Arlene Bishop.
Yeah, well, and that's the connection there, is that Arlene and I were both on the board of the Ontario Council of Folk Festivals at the same time, so we knew each other well. And yeah.
I still wear, Arlene, if you're listening, I still wear my coping T-shirt. She gave me a T-shirt that said coping. She talked about being what do you call it, diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, and how that changed her life. And she's got this T-shirt that says coping. So hello to Arlene Bishop.
She's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, never met her in person, but a couple of Zooms with her and quite like her style. Leona Boyd.
So I can't remember how the connection got made, but she was making this record, Canada, My Canada, whatever, and she found out about the guitar and she contacted me, and I ended up taking the guitar down to the studio there, down off Cherry Street somewhere, and spent an afternoon with her while she used my guitar to record the song with.
Okay, so now as a producer of my own show, I realize that we've gone an hour, and I'm good. There's a lot of names left on the list, and I need to talk to you about other things. So what if I said the name and you get like I hate to say it, but you get 20 seconds. Okay.
Let's do it.
Tim Bovaconti
has played it many times, and guy around town.
He's in the Guess Who now.
No kidding, eh?
Jeez. Shout out to Tim, and I met him through Blair as well. So shout out to him. Blair's hooking me up with everybody. Oh man, I'm gonna see these guys in the summer. Love Stars, Torquil Campbell.
Yeah. So they played the guitar on Canada Day. Amy played. It was a thrill for me. From Elevator Love Letter, gling 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 gling.
They're having a resurgence, because this whole scene, this whole broken social scene, and all the bands that come out of it, be it Feist or Stars or Metric or whatever, absolutely having a nostalgic resurgence 20 years later.
Yeah. Well, and Amy played it multiple times since then, and she played it solo down in Harbourfront. But Torquil, we were in the Tironi restaurant on Victoria Street,
right? And
he came up to me. We were both at different tables, and he said, "I love your project. Anything I can do to help, let me know."
Okay,
lovely guy.
His brother recorded something for me. He came over for a podcast I produced, Benedict Campbell, and I'm going to play it for you because I love it so much, and it'll tie into everything.
When there's nothing left to burn, you listen to Toronto Mike.
There you go.
Fantastic.
You know what that's referencing. Okay. Yeah. Oh my God, I just saw her again. We talked about the Kurt Swinghammer on my wall. Maybe that was before I pressed record. I can't remember now. But this woman's full-time job is busting my chops. She loves it. There's a glint in her eye. There's no one on the planet right now who likes busting my chops more than Laurie Cullen.
She's amazing. I love Laurie Cullen. And so we did, what was it, 2 years ago now, Henderson Brewing made a 6-String Nation citrus wheat beer.
Okay.
And we did a launch there, and subsequently we came back to do the full presentation, like the one I'm doing on the 29th at Henderson's. And I asked Laurie if she wouldn't mind coming, and so she played a few songs as part of what we call the performance pocket part of the presentation.
Love it. You have shouted out Henderson's. They're doing great work with you. And I will tell you, Great Lakes Brewery sent over fresh craft beer for you, Joey. So you're bringing some Great Lakes.
Thank you, Great Lakes.
So another great
connections there too.
Okay, good to hear. What's the connection to you're not a hockey guy, so this won't interest you, but Jeff Merrick worked at Great Lakes for a couple of weeks. And then around that same time, he worked at Park Lawn Cemetery. And he says he's the guy who dug the hole that Harold Ballard went into.
No way.
Yeah. This is the story
That's
he tells.
deep hockey.
There you go. So Harold Ballard, Park Lawn Cemetery. Okay, I said 30 seconds each name. I suck at this. Okay, but oh my God, I mentioned my show at the El Macombo, May 21, and I'm urging everyone to grab a ticket. What an experience. On stage with me is going to be Rob Pruce. He was keyboardist with the Spoons. Tell me about Gord Depp.
Gord Depp, I sent you a picture too of Gord playing it at Hughes' room. It was Gordon and Sandy. And we kind of go way back, only that in that Gordon and Sandy did used to be regulars at the aforementioned Zydeco on Markham Street. They played there every whatever, and yeah, got to know them a little bit then.
All right, recent FOTM. Break out your ukulele here. Melanie Doan.
Melanie Doan was a regular performer at Harborfront Center, where I was a coordinator, and she was one of the first people I told about the project. And I remember her talking about Shubenacadie and the place, the importance of that place in her heart. And so she kind of, in a way, guided some of the early conception of the project as being not just about famous stuff. It needed to bring the country alive, that every piece that went into the story into the guitar needed to tell a story. And it had to pull from every aspect of Canadian life, every perspective of Canadian life, and not just, it couldn't just be a guitar of donuts and hockey.
Right. No, I'm glad. Melanie Doan, who had a great chat with her in this basement. And then now I notice on Instagram, she's liking a lot of my stuff. I feel like she's engaged now in the original TMU here. So much love to her.
I'd love to get the guitar in her hands, actually.
Well, we can make that happen, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, we can do that. Now, closest I get to going to church these days is a nice long chat with Jay Douglas.
Oh, Jay Douglas. Well, and Jay Douglas, again, this is another Harborfront connection. And so he was regularly performing there, but he was also close with Sandra Whiting, who was a friend of mine from Harborfront Center. And we would sometimes see them out and about socially. And he's just one of those, man, what a gentleman that guy is. And so, I mean, such deep history.
The Cougars?
And someone I had early conversations about the project with.
Okay, Rick Emmett.
Rick Emmett, of course, part of the song studio with Blair. And so it's too bad. I got a picture of him holding the guitar somewhere, but I couldn't find it. So all I've been able to send you is a picture of Blair playing it on stage at the old Hughes room, and Rick accompanying.
This is really the Blair Packham show.
Yeah, that's right.
To it in my headphones right now.
All things Blair.
All right, so you kind of did this off the top. So we talked about Colin Linden, who's not an FOTM, but Stephen Fearing, and of course Tom Wilson, right? Yeah. So we did Blackie in the Rodeo Kings segment. So tell me about Greg Godovitz.
I was at Daddario gives me my strings and other stuff too. They've been super supportive, Daddario Canada, and they had me. They had us doing the portraits. So my photographer is Doug Nicholson, and we've done these portraits. We've now done about 150,000 portraits of 15,000 different people in every province and territory of Canada and in Italy, holding the guitar. And so Daddario sponsored us to be part of the Music Industry Association conference in Toronto in 2007, I think it was, or 2009. And Gatto was there, of course. And what a swell guy. And we did a great series of portraits with him. And then he moved to Calgary, and I was involved with what was then the Cantos Music Foundation that then morphed into the National Music Center. So I was there. They had me present the project at the unveiling of the renderings for the new building that became the Studio Bell, where they are situated now. And Greg was at that too, so we had a bit of a reunion there.
Okay, I'm going to have to ring a bell when you hit the 30-second mark. This is very difficult. I know. But what was I going to say about Greg Godovitz? Can't remember. Oh, yeah, you mentioned Italy.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd, jump off that ledge and tell you, in my freezer upstairs, okay, Joey, I got a large, frozen, delicious lasagna.
I will take it.
Sent over by Palma Pasta. A delicious, authentic Italian food. They have outlet stores in Mississauga and Oakville, but you can go to palmapasta.com because I think they're in some Longos. I think there's other ways to get it, but just get your hands on some Palma pasta lasagna, damn it. But you're getting a lasagna.
Let me get my hands on that.
Well, that's happening, brother. That's happening. Okay, Cooking with Gas now. Just chatted with him remotely from BC. Bill Henderson.
I was actually trying to remember whether or not he's actually held the guitar, but we did a thing with Sherry Ulrich out in Canmore, maybe it was, something like that. And of course, Bill was involved with like in industry circles. So we've talked, and it was really the Sherry Ulrich connection that I was thinking there.
He's retired from the road. They're done.
Understandable.
They're done. My goodness. Chilliwack. Okay. Sometimes when we touch. Dan Hill.
My parents were friends with his parents. They worked in the same area as Dan Hill, who was ombudsman, race relations advisor to the government of Ontario back in the day. And they lived in our neighborhood. We went to the same high school. Dan was a bunch of years earlier than me, but he was produced by Matt McCauley. And Matt and Tim and Megan were friends of mine from down the street. Well, Matt was older than me, but Dan used to sing in the washrooms at Victoria Park Secondary, where I went. And very formative influences on me musically, the McCauley family. And of course, then they produced the Dan Hill record. And then I was delighted when I was at the Sunshine Coast Writers Festival when my book came out, and I appeared at the festival in Sechelt, BC, along with Lauren Hill. Lauren Hill.
No, Lauren Hill.
Lawrence Hill. Yeah, Lauren Hill.
My wife saw her apparently very late for her concerts.
Yeah, I heard
that's
about
the
that.
Lauren Hill.
I heard about that. Yeah, no, Lawrence Hill was lovely and actually ordered prints of his portraits that are up in his home.
Okay. Love it, but we got to shout out FOTM Fred Mullen, who was heavily involved with the production of Sometimes When We Touch. Fred Mullen. Okay. Also, Santa Jaws. Do you have any memories? You're maybe too young for Santa Jaws.
No, I remember
you remember
Santa Jaws.
Okay,
Sure,
that was him and his brother.
Was it really? I had that single.
Okay, well, so it's funny. I mentioned Rob Bruce because he's. Did I mention I'm at the Elma Combo only 21? I can't remember if I mentioned that yet or not. But Rob also had that 45, and if you're of a certain vintage, that Santa Jaws 45 was pretty popular.
Yeah. I
okay, well, that's Fred Mullen.
Free, yeah.
And he ties in with Dan Hill. Okay. I'm doing a terrible job. We're going to spend 3 hours on this list, but I am enjoying it. But recent FOTM, Gordie Johnson.
Gordie, well, there's another
kind of sounded like he was coming off a bender.
We keep coming back to a few places: Harbourfront Center, CBC, and Zydeco. Right. And Gordie, Big Sugar were regulars there at Zydeco, and so then after he moved out to Alberta, and gave up presumably the Hugo Boss sponsorship that he had for his suits when he was with Big Sugar, and adopted a whole new look. And we did Canada Day on Parliament Hill 4 times in total, but I think it was the second or third one, Gordie was there. Big Sugar was there maybe, but certainly Gordie was there. And so we had a really nice reunion backstage, and got some shots of him with the guitar too.
Colin James, aforementioned, arguably one of the first people to play it, because I think he was the first person to rehearse with it in the 2 days of rehearsals before the actual debut on Canada Day 2006. He played Into the Mystic on it. Lovely guy. And he was one of the people, I know this is going to go over my 30-second limit, but he was one of the people, some people would say to me, well, the action's a little bit low, and he's got big hands, and he was like, oh, the action's kind of high. Or no, he said the action was kind of low. Other people said it was kind of high. And it's like, this is going to be my life now, like navigating people's preferences. Right. Okay, so who was it? Very recently, I was talking to Tom Wilson. I bumped into him at the It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken. And he took credit for Colin James coming to this basement. And I had always wrongly given credit to Eric Alper. So it's only come to light recently. Tom says he talked to his dear friend Colin James and said, you got to visit this guy's basement. So who knows who's responsible. But yep, Colin James was in the basement here. Andy Kim's been in the basement.
Andy Kim, what a sweet guy. He's a good friend of Andy Stachansky's. And so I was at a bunch of dinner parties with Andy Kim, which always felt so cool to me. And then we did Andy and Ron Sexsmith, they wrote that Christmas song together, and they were doing it. It was a Christmas show at Hughes Room where the guitar was there. And here's the I'm going to take my more than 30 seconds here on this one. So Ron was going to play the guitar during the song with Andy. So it was on stage with the two of them. The backing band was Derek Downham, Kevin Fox, and I can't remember on drums, Adrian on drums. He's the guy who's always on drums with that crew. But anyway, apologies there for not remembering that name off the top of my head. Anyway, so Ron finishes the song, and Derek Downham says, "Hey, can I play that guitar?" I said, "Yeah, of course, sure." So, and then he said, "I sweat a lot." And I said, "That's okay." And Kevin Fox says, No, he sweats a lot. And I said, "Listen, it's fine. A little bit of Derek Downham sweat in there would be just fine." And so he took it and he played it for the next couple songs. And then we got great shots of Derek with the guitar when he was with Elliot Brood. And we were at the Salmon Arm Festival.
Elliot Brood had a song so similar to, there's a Wolf Parade song called I'll Believe in Anything that just had a resurgence thanks to Heated Rivalry, but I was obsessed with for a while. At the same time, I was obsessed with a song by Elliot Brood called The Bridge. Like this song, I get into a song like that and it just on a continuous loop.
Yeah. I wonder if that's the same song that I'm thinking of.
The Bridge.
I totally have an Elliot Brood song that I looped a lot for sure.
Yeah. Elliot Brood Bridge. Hold on here. I'm sure it was called The Bridge. Yeah, it's called The Bridge. All right. So it's from like the mid 2000s. When is this? 2000. I gotta dig this up. But this song, and I urge people just stop what you're doing, go listen to Elliot Brood's The Bridge, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And I had the same reaction at maybe around the same time to Wolf Parade's I'll Believe in Anything. It's like, what are these Canadian songs? Like, what's going on here? Okay, what a moment. All right, man, I'm serious now. Listen, I've been a nice guy this whole time, but I can't, this is unbelievable. I got so many names. So can I cherry pick names, or is that offensive?
No, you do what you need to do.
Only because of time constraints.
You can put it in the show notes.
Okay, well, I'm going to cherry pick, although this, so we've already done Humble Howard. Okay, so I'm going to say Sky Diggers, Andy Mays.
Josh Finlayson played it on stage a couple times, most thrillingly at the Illuminaqua Festival. They did from, what's it, to Marjorie, from, all of a sudden the name of the place in Alberta just left me. But anyway, yeah.
Okay, Craig Northey.
Craig Northey at the Exclaim Cup in 2007, I think. Great portrait with him.
Jane Siberry.
Jane, who is a delight, and I heard her on your show. And
that was something.
Yeah. She's otherworldly. I was introduced to her before her first record by a guy named John Elmsley. And so I was thrilled to put the guitar in her hands at the Vancouver Folk Festival.
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm legally allowed to go beyond Jane Siberry without playing this little clip of Jane Siberry. I feel I have to do it. So let me see if I have this clip of her. There she is. Do you, Jane, remember who directed the video for Mimi on the Beach?
Yes, it was Dick. I think Dick is some name that I can't remember. I'm sorry, but
okay,
probably.
Well, let me jog your memory just because I was watching it recently, and I saw the last name Oleksiak.
Yeah, that sounds.
So Oleksiak, and then I did a little Googling because I know an Oleksiak. I know a couple of Oleksiaks, and one happens to be the most decorated Canadian Olympian of all time, and then another an NHL player. But it turns out the director of that video is the father of Penny Oleksiak, the Olympic swimmer.
Well, she wasn't born when we needed a Mimi.
No.
For the surfboard, that's too bad.
But that's kind of a wild little coincidence, right? It's kind of wild that the person who directed your biggest, well, it's debatable, but your first big single eventually would father the most decorated Olympian in the history of this country.
Okay. I don't find it that interesting.
No? Okay. I was devastated. Okay. I
It's
feel like I got a favorite town.
moderately interesting, but not a huge thing, I wouldn't say.
All right, so there you go. I feel I have to play the Gen Z.
So
She
why?
really set me straight. I got very excited over that, what I call a fun fact. Possibly a mind blow. That's how big I was on that particular nugget, but she wasn't hearing it.
I don't know. I didn't find it that interesting.
Get out of my basement. Okay. Bob Wiseman. Speaking of wild adventures, my 1 hour of Bob Wiseman.
Yeah, he's a lovely and sweet guy, and we had coffee together a bunch of times. When I used to run the Sororan Park Festival, when I lived right overlooking Sororan Park, I asked him to play live to Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times that we showed. It was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. He's a great guy.
He does this thing called Two Pianos, No Rodeo that he does with Michael Boguski, who's the current keyboardist for Blue Rodeo. Very interesting tandem. Okay.
Yeah.
Shout out to Boguski. Okay. Cherry picking now, skipping some names because of time. Hawksley Workman.
Hawksley Workman, I used to bump into him in the Air Canada lounges when we were busy flying around the country, and we encountered him a couple of times at festivals and did wonderful portraits with him in Edmonton, and he played it live in Edmonton and maybe somewhere else too. I just love his work so much. I think he's so brilliant.
Yeah, and I like that guy too. Very cool guy. Speaking of cool people, Garvia Bailey.
Garvia Bailey was one of the early producers on my CBC show, Global Village, and we got early portraits with her in Guelph, actually, where she's from, at the Hillside Festival.
I think she'd be a great host of Metro Morning. What do you say?
Yeah, I think so too. Garvia is great.
I don't know if she wants the gig. I haven't asked her, but if she wanted to wake up that early.
Well, you know what's funny? She's been great on Q, and
yeah, she was.
I mean, CBC, CBC is a problem place in lots of ways. I certainly have my issues with how my own departure there went, and I know that Garvia does too. And yet they managed to convince her to come back, and it's worked out well for her.
Yeah, well, Tom Power had a parental leave, and Garvia was filling in, and she did a great job. It's funny, the other woman who would often fill in for Q, Talia Schlanger, is busy in Hamilton because she stars in this It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken.
Oh, there you go.
And she does a great job in that one here. Okay, so Brent Bambury, speaking of CBC.
Again, just a pal from the CBC days, for sure. Lovely guy.
Okay, we'll stick with CBC for a moment. Matt Galloway.
He was also an early producer on Global Village, and I'll never forget him. I could not think of a better person to take over Metro Morning when he did, right, and a better person to take over the current. He's so sharp. People would say to me, "Oh, the host chair is coming up at Metro Morning. You should go for that." It's like, I couldn't do that. That's not what I do. Matt Galloway was perfectly suited to that.
Oh, I agree. Andy Barry to Matt Galloway was one of the great transitions there.
That whole transition was fantastic. And we have wonderful portraits of Andy Barry with the guitar. He had me on shortly after the guitar was born, along with Madagascar Slim playing live. And Andy Barry, like Matt Galloway, I think, has a huge amount of curiosity. Just amazingly curious person.
Another curious person, FOTM Danny Elwell.
Yeah, I just know her from back in the old CKLN days.
Okay, CKLN. Yeah. So, since we're in CKLN, DJ Ron Nelson.
Ron and I went to high school together at Victoria Park, and I remember riding around with Ron in his yellow Toyota Tercel. Ron, if you're listening, I'll never forget it. Good times. So,
fantastic voyage.
Yeah.
I'm looking at, there's a couple of Maestro 12 inches up here, but there's a Dream Warriors one here.
Yeah,
they literally did that in Ron's home studio.
Yeah, exactly.
And now the legacy begins and all that. Exactly. So important.
Well, and he's become like when he started Fantastic, because I was at CKLN when he started that too. And
right.
Just became the place. And he's become such a sort of he's the grand old man of Canadian rap now. This, he's quite
although
he did do
a pivot to reggae, But yes, but you're right. You can't do a Canadian hip hop story without DJ Ron Nelson. Absolutely. All right, I'm gonna do a few more names. Who am I gonna pick on here? Okay, so I did I mention I'm at the Elmo on May 21? I can't remember, but May 22. If I survive May 21, and if I don't die on stage like Humble Howard thinks might happen, on May 22, my guest will be in this basement, Charlie Angus.
Well, Charlie Angus and I have multiple connections, mostly through Cobalt, Ontario. And he interviewed my dad, who was deeply involved in labor relations stuff for a anthology kind of thing that he wrote. And then, of course, we had a relationship with Jack Layton, and when we went to Parliament Hill in 2007 to do portraits with politicians of all stripes, we got great ones with Peter MacKay, for example. We did ones with the caucus at the time, which was Paul Dewar, now dead, Jack Layton, now dead, Peggy Nash, and
Parkdale.
That's right,
yeah,
and Charlie. And then, of course, we did a thing at the Classic Theatre in Cobalt, Ontario, and Charlie came out with my guitar to perform the Cobalt song.
Amazing. Okay, so I'll see him again on the 22nd if I survive the 21st.
Say hello.
We'll close with a couple more politicians. Everybody loves it when we talk about politicians, but Bob Rae.
Bob Rae, my mom was Bob Rae's executive assistant for many years when he was in opposition, not when he was in the Premier's office. He's kind of incredible. So he was one of my early honorary patrons, and I would send out little email updates to my honorary patrons to let them know how things were going. And I got a couple of responses now and then. It didn't matter. They were there to be, to attract funders or government people or whatever to the project, to lend it some oomph. And Bob Rae would answer whether I dropped my email at 6 a.m. or midnight or 2 p.m. He would come back 10 minutes later with cogent remarks on what I had said. Yeah. He's an amazing guy, and came out to get his portrait done when we were at the Spoke Club on the occasion of the book launch. And he came to, I let him know when my mom was dying, and he came out to the hospital and stuff. And he's a mensch.
Well, all you need to know is that man slummed it in this South Etobicoke basement talking to some independent podcaster for 60 to 90 minutes. That tells you what kind of guy Bob Rae is. And we'll close with a woman who Ralph Benmergui told me we could never have this woman. I mean, I look back at Ralph. I saw him at that It's a Good Life If You Don't weekend. I'm going to rough him up a little, Ralph Benmergui, because he said to me, Mike, we can't ask the Premier of Ontario, Kathleen Wynne, to visit your South Etobicoke basement. He was ashamed. I had to go find another studio and record a Ralph Kathleen Wynne conversation there. And at some point I was chatting with Kathleen Wynne. She was no longer in office, but I kind of shared the story, and she said, oh my God, she says, I would absolutely have no problem visiting. She doesn't have those airs about her, which you know what I mean? This was in Ralph's head, and I don't know why, but she did eventually visit the South Etobicoke basement studio for an episode of Toronto Mike. Kathleen Wynne did. So give me your Kathleen Wynne connection, and then we're going to finally move on.
Just that we did a portraits session at the Ontario Ledge, and Kathleen Wynne came down to get her portrait taken, which is super cool. When she was
I got the
premiering.
very she was a very accessible, very decent person.
So, and because I think probably because there's so many educational outcomes for Six String Nation, we do a lot of school presentations and stuff, and so she's got her eye on education as former education minister, and so she really liked the project a lot.
So, in case this gets buried here, because we're going to talk about that radio stuff, I love talking radio, but Six String Nation, we've spent a lot of time talking about Six String Nation, but what exactly is happening on May 29th, 2026 at 8 p.m. at Small World Music Center?
So it's kind of a all guns blazing kind of event. It's an amazing little facility down there. I was involved with Small World many, many, many years ago when it first got off the ground. They now have this remarkable little theater in the Young Place building at 180 Shaw Street. We're doing an event with them, so I'll be delivering the latest iteration of the presentation. You know, it changes over the years as context changes and politics changes and all that, but there are a few key stories, but, you know, I've kind of reframed things a little bit. So this is a new iteration of the multimedia presentation that I deliver. We have a segment which normally is just about 10 minutes long, called the Performance Pocket, where someone plays the guitar or a couple people play the guitar. In this case, we've got the Performance Pocket built into the presentation, and that will be filled by Eunice Ketan, who's a Malaysian-Canadian currently on tour in Asia, so she'll be playing it during that segment. We're going to take a short intermission. There's going to be some snacks provided by Newcomer Kitchen. We're going to have wine and beer, and then we're going to have 4 more performers, each doing a few minutes on the guitar. Tara Guerreri, Carla Garcia, Jer, and J.E. Lopez. They're all part of the Small World Music Incubator program. So they're all, very experienced artists, very diverse talents, and they're each going to bring Voyageur to life in its own way. And then afterwards, after the presentation and after the performances, we're going to be doing free portraits with people. So this is your chance to literally hold history in your hands. It's free. The concert is not free. In fact, it's a money-losing proposition for us, but the whole thing is going to be shot on some high-def video, so we will finally have the definitive document of the presentation. We don't just do one portrait of people, we do multiple. So you sign in and we take your email, and we'll do as many portraits as my photographer's happy and you're happy, and it becomes a document, a record of the event for one thing, but also makes you part of this gallery of 150,000 images that have been taken across the country, and we send you those electronically following the event.
And where do you go to get tickets?
To smallworldmusic.com.ca. I've got a link in there somewhere.
Google Small World Music, May 29. You'll find it, everybody. We'll find it for sure. Because I'm looking at a QR code, but I don't know how to share that via podcast. I haven't figured that out yet. How to scan a podcast. But cool. The event sounds really cool. Six String Nation sounds like Canada, and that's
and all that stuff included. Like it's a night out, man.
It's a thing. Okay, that's a big deal. So go to Me at the Elmo on the 21st, and then go to that on the 29th. A little music here as we segue out of Six String Nation.
Pain and beauty, let it all move right through me. Good.
The album is...
Oh, yeah, we get some voiceover here. Okay, well, but tell me what song is playing in the background here.
This is called Les Chansons de Voyageur. It's by David Leask. David had seen my presentation a couple times and then approached me and said, someone's got to write some songs for these. And I said, well, if you're going to do that, you should probably take the guitar for a bit and get to know it. And so he took it for a couple weeks. He wrote 5 songs for it, including this one.
It's got different voices.
And that's his voice.
Yeah, that's him from the video about the making of. And the great thing about this particular song, the other songs are drawn from the materials in the guitar. This one is actually just about the spirit of the guitar itself.
The story in guitar.
And every instrument that you hear, the guitars, the lead guitar, the drums, the bass, are all played on Voyageur.
Very cool, very cool. Couple more partners I'm going to thank here before I ask you about this radio career of yours, which looks pretty cool. I got a measuring tape for you, Joey. This is courtesy of Ridley Funeral Home.
Thank you. Well, I need that. Thank you very much.
You never know when you need to measure something. Brad Jones from Ridley Funeral Home has a great podcast, which is now available also in video form. That's a brand new change for Life's Undertaking. So subscribe to Life's Undertaking, and on the Ridley Funeral Home Facebook page, you can see video of Brad and I recording every couple of weeks as well. So That's a great podcast. And one more podcast I will shout out is Building Toronto Skyline and Mike and Nick. These are a couple of podcasts from Nick Iones, who is a proud sponsor of this podcast, helping to amplify cool stories like yours, Joey. So much love to Nick Iones. And last but not least, recyclemyelectronics.ca. That's where you go if you have I can imagine you might have old cables, old devices, old electronics in a drawer, in a room maybe. Joey, don't throw that in the garbage. Those chemicals end up in our landfill. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca, put in your postal code, and find out where you can drop it all off to be properly recycled.
I need that.
Memorize that URL, recyclemyelectronics.ca. Okay, Joey, before we say goodbye, that was very thorough, very interesting. I'm glad we got to meet, but I couldn't help you. You referenced the fact you were on CBC Radio. I'm a big CBC Radio fan. Can you tell me about your radio broadcaster, producer, writer, hosting career?
Well, I did. I leapt from CKLN onto Global Village at CBC Radio, which was, it lasted for almost 10 years. It was a national show and went out on shortwave as well, and was an early pioneer of online stuff. We also, that's where Andy Berry comes in again. I remember him being so interested in the way that we used file sharing to produce the show. And then, me and my pal Pietro Paolo, whose father also worked at CBC, Paolo was a producer there, and we were frustrated by the fact that there was no home for electronic music on CBC Radio, and we thought there was this kind of bias against it, and we came up with this idea for a show, and we did a little test where we went out to Roncesvalles, we went to a bunch of bars, and we asked, what's the relationship between music and electricity? And we were in Gate 403, it was set up for live music, and they had the CD player going and all that kind of stuff. We said, what's the relationship between electricity and music? And the guy said, well, there isn't one. I mean, you don't need electricity to make music. You just play an instrument, whatever. We were like, wow, you've got mics plugged in over there. You've got amps. You've got everything. And we embarked on this series called The Wire, The Impact of Electricity on Music, which covered that relationship going back over 100 years. I did some of the last interviews with Les Paul and Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, and one of your guests too. I think Alan Cross was in there and a bunch of others. That series won a Peabody Award and several others. Wow. It was an amazing series.
Well, I got to say, I absolutely loved this series.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I thought it was so well done, and it's just a wild coincidence when I'm like, Jowi Taylor, and I was chatting with Blair Packham and mentioned The Wire. Like I could talk about my favorite TV show of all time, The Wire, but this is the Wire, The Impact of Electricity on Music. It was excellent. I didn't know about the Peabody Award. That's cool.
Yeah, we got our Peabody from Jon Stewart at the Waldorf Astoria at the ceremony there. And that same year, Trey Parker and Matt Stone had won, so we got to hang out with them.
Wow.
And Battlestar Galactica as well. So I was hanging out. I was having martinis with Starbuck in the lobby bar at the Waldorf Astoria, and I thought, this is my life. This is kind of awesome.
No, well done. Well done.
And then we did a follow-up to that as well.
The Nerve.
The Nerve, yeah. The Nerve, Music and the Human Experience. So it covered 6 episodes that covered, music and war, music and love, music and emotion.
Hey, so where would you hear this today?
Yeah, this is the problem, right?
So you're telling me there's no legal way to listen to this right now? I get everyone all hot and heavy about The Wire, the impact of electricity on music. And I don't there's nowhere I can direct them to actually listen to this.
No, I think you know what? I'm going to send you a link. Some time ago, CBC made some of it available. However, it's very hard to find to go on and say.
But also, why some of it? Like, why not? You produce this, you own this, and it's great. Why not make it available? That should be part of their mandate.
Well, I believe so too, and I encourage everyone to write letters and say bring it back because this was a great series. and still relevant. That's the great thing. You listen to it now, and it's still like, wow, this hasn't aged too badly at all. We kind of wound up with MP3s and so on, but it's still a great series, and it should be available. One of the innovative things that we did on that show was that we played the entirety. Following an interview with Mark Kingwell about it, which was great, we played the entirety of Bohemian Rhapsody to kind of reassemble the song after the conversation we'd had about it. And that's one of the reasons why I think they can't put it online.
It's always something like that, right? It's always some licensing thing. And geez, welcome to my world. Okay. In fact, that song I just played, the only song I played in this episode, is that going to get me flagged on Spotify? What do you know about it here?
I think David Leask will be delighted. Well, it's all independently done.
It turns out, so I closed every episode of this podcast with Rosie and Grave from Shakespeare My Butt, which is, of course, we talked about that off the top. I saw Lowest of the Low play. It's weird to see Lowest of the Low in concert. And the fifth song being Rosie and Grey, because they always close with Rosie and Grey, and then you leave. Like, this is like a Pavlov dog thing, which is why I close every episode with it. I had to change it to a cover because I kept getting flagged by YouTube and Spotify specifically. And the owner of the song, I don't know if he's the owner, that's a problem, but the guy who wrote the song, and I think he owns it in some regard, Ron Hawkins, said, I approve of this. I like you playing this. Please play this. But it didn't, the bots don't seem to care. Like I need, so I don't know how the bots work and how they decide what's a piece of unlicensed music and what's something that you can actually play. I don't know. So it's not as simple as the guy who owns the song and wrote the song saying, please play my song. Yeah, right? It's far more complicated than that, which is this world. And I feel like that's your next series. You got to talk about this world, this AI slop and the bots running this and that. And we need a sequel.
We do. Listen, I would gladly do it.
You just need someone to pay for it.
Yeah.
I hear that, brother. I hear that. I have a question, though, about your show, Global Village. Like, why did Global Village, it ran for a decade, right? Yeah. Like, why did it come to an end?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think, it was around the time when CBC was rebranding Radio 2. I was away from a classical station, so it became Radio 1, which was more information programming, and Radio 2, which was going to be music, and they were going to broaden it out. And, one of the great disappointments for me was that, well, we don't need Global Village anymore because there's going to be all kinds of so-called world music. It's going to be very diverse on the platform and so on. And all kinds of artists, good friends, they were recruited to sort of endorse this because they thought, well, yes, the new Radio 2 is going to feature our music more. This is going to be great. And then CBC Radio 2 just totally turned their backs on them to a large extent.
Disappointing.
Yep.
Jeez. Okay. So when do you leave the CBC?
2009, I think, 8 or 9.
8 or 9. Okay.
Yeah, in miserable circumstances. I hosted the overnight show that was called Night Stream, which sounded to me like you had sort of bladder issues, but
that's true.
It was a dreadful program that I was ashamed to.
Oh, that's interesting. What's it like to? Yeah, I always wonder. Oh, I guess sometimes for money you have to host things you don't love.
Well, they stuck me in a gulag where nobody ever visited, and I produced the entire show by myself. It was just the most isolating, and I had to work with, and you'll understand this. I have a vast library of music at home. I constantly listen to new music. I'm obsessed with new music, and they gave me a library of 4,000 songs to work with, 7 days a week, that was supposed to cover midnight to 6 a.m. Or 1 a.m., whatever it was, a 5-hour radio show with 4,000 songs 7 days a week. You can imagine the repetition, and it had to go from folk to classical. So
you weren't a happy camper, and I guess the partying was not amicable.
Not sweet sorrow, just sorrow.
Thanks. Yeah. Yesterday for Mother's Day, my wife and my youngest daughter went to see this. It's called And Juliet.
Yeah.
They loved it. Like, they both absolutely loved it. It's songs from Max Martin. is
Yeah,
the songs and stuff, and Juliet. But it's this world where Juliet doesn't die at the end of Romeo and Juliet. Like what would have happened next or whatever. And I just thought of, because I also just recently watched Hamnet, the film that was nominated, and she won Best Actress, but Anne Hathaway, but not the actress Hannah. It gets very confusing when you talk about Anne Hathaway. But I absolutely loved Hamnet anyway, so I've had a bit of Shakespeare. And I just talked about Shakespeare in my butt. So I think there's a lot of Shakespeare on the brain here, Joey, is what I'm telling you here. This guy's still kicking ass in 2026. Hey, how was this? Is there anything we didn't talk about where you're going to be driving home or whatever and kicking yourself?
Yes.
Well, do you want me to? What is it?
No, I just mean that once I get in the car.
Well, you know, it's not too late. Like there's a long build up here before we get to the Easter eggs that Rob Proust put in this cover of Rosie and Gray from Shakespeare in My Butt. But how was this for you? Oh,
this was great. This was like a normal, nice, actual conversation.
I feel like I should shout out all the names I skipped, right? Like I skipped Rob Bowman, who was an amazing guest.
Again, CKLN connection going way back.
So good. And I skipped, because I actually don't really remember him, because he was interviewed sort of more by Gare Joyce than I did, and Gare Joyce put him on. But Roy McGregor, I feel like I need another crack at Roy, but Roy McGregor is an FOTM.
Oh, well, so here's the thing.
Yeah.
When this project was floundering, when the government changed, when the Harper Conservatives got elected, I had been promised $50,000 by the Department of Canadian Heritage. Bev Odo was the new culture minister. She just crossed me out and left me completely stranded. And I was like, what am I going to do? Roy McGregor wrote a piece in the paper saying, why is this guy having problems? Right. This is an amazing project that deserves the full support of Canadians. And if it wasn't for his article, the Bushes wouldn't have been beaten as they were. And some very generous sponsors emerged to get me over the finish line. Well,
I'm glad we got that key nugget in here.
Yeah, thank you, Roy.
And I'll just shout out Mark Breslin.
Used to go to salons with him through my friend Robin Payne.
And one of the Garys, Gary Cormier.
Gary Cormier and Gary Top. I was at the edge more times than I could count, and spent some time just chatting with Gary Cormier. And recently, Gary Top was a fan of my show at CKLN too, so we connected when his book came
you didn't
out.
put Gary Top on the list here.
Oh, was he one of your?
Yeah, many. Gary
really?
Top was over here for a pretty big deep dive. Hey, I'll just shout out this man because he's 109 years old and he's still going to live music as often as he can. But Richard Flohill.
Yeah, he was on my early honorary patrons board and has been a big supporter and a lovely guy, and he's a neighbor of mine, so we see each other from time to time, and I go to his birthday parties. And
he's an ambassador of Toronto Maple Leafs baseball. So let's just shout out Cito Gaston.
So I was in West Elm one time, and Cito Gaston and his wife were there, and then, he had just left, right? They did the big thing down at the Rogers Center, and I went up to him, and I just said, I just want to thank you for all the great stuff you did for this city, and everybody, we just love you so much. And what struck me was, he was towering. He was so kind. He was so gracious. His wife was so lovely, and his skin was perfect.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,898th show. Go to torontomike.com for all your Toronto Mike needs. Pick up an Elmo ticket or two for May 21. And much love to all who made this possible. Again, that's Great Lakes Brewery. Joey, you got your beer.
Woo-hoo.
Palma Pasta, I got a lasagna upstairs for you. Toronto Maple Leafs Baseball, you got your history book. Nick Ieni's, recyclemyelectronics.ca, and Ridley Funeral Home, you got your measuring tape. See you all. Gosh, I'm not ready. I can't believe it. We're almost out of song. I have to tell you who's coming up next. This is important. Who's next on Toronto Mike? Load in here. What's going on? All right, my next guest, oh my God. Don Pyle. Don Pyle is my guest tomorrow. His return, don't you dare miss it.